Benefits of rural EB-5 projects for Chinese, Indian, and Vietnamese EB-5 investors. Individuals who would like to obtain U.S. green cards through the EB-5 Immigrant Investor Program can choose from a variety of investment opportunities. Still, certain types of EB-5 projects offer exclusive benefits and can increase visa applicants' chances of immigrating successfully. This is especially true for EB-5 investors from countries with a substantial demand for EB-5 immigration, particularly China, India, and Vietnam. In this informative video, we provide an overview of rural EB-5 investment projects and their benefits for EB-5 investors. What is a rural EB-5 project? An EB-5 investment project can qualify for Targeted Employment Area or TEA designation if it is located in either a high unemployment area or a rural area. EB-5 visa applicants who invest in a project with TEA designation enjoy a reduced minimum investment requirement of only $800,000 instead of the usual $1,050,000. To qualify as a rural TEA under the EB-5 program, a project's location cannot have a population greater than 20,000, border a municipality with more than 20,000 people, or be located within a metropolitan statistical area. An EB-5 project's rural TEA designation must be supported by the most recent 10-year U.S. Census data. Benefits of investing in a rural EB-5 project. Besides the lower minimum investment requirement, rural TEA projects can also enable investors from countries with a backlog of EB-5 visa applications to immigrate to the United States significantly faster, even years earlier than otherwise possible. The long processing delays for countries with a high volume of EB-5 investors are caused by limited visa availability. The EB-5 program makes a limited number of visas available each fiscal year. In addition, each participating country in the EB-5 program is entitled to no more than 7% of the total EB-5 visa supply. Since most EB-5 visa applications come from a small number of high-demand countries, investors of these nationalities often find that visa demand from their country exceeds supply. When a country's number of EB-5 visa applications exceeds the number of available visas, the country has entered visa retrogression. China, India, and Vietnam have historically had the highest demand for EB-5 immigration. As of December 2022, both China and India are in visa retrogression, and Vietnam's high demand for EB-5 immigration may create a backlog in the near future. Before receiving their green cards, investors from countries in visa retrogression are subject to additional delays, even if the investors have already received approval for Form I-526E, the initial immigration petition for a green card. To deal with visa backlogs, the EB-5 program imposes cutoff dates for applicants from retrogressed countries. This measure only allows investors to receive their green cards if the date on which they filed Form I-526E, known as the priority date, is earlier than the applicable cutoff date. For example, as of December 2022, Indian investors were subject to a cutoff date of November 8, 2019. This means that any Indian investor who filed Form I-526E on or after this date will not yet be able to receive their green cards. The EB-5 program may take many months or even years to move the cutoff dates forward and allow more investors from backlogged countries to immigrate. The situation faced by EB-5 investors from countries in visa retrogression may be compared to waiting in a long, slow-moving line. There are not enough visas available at the end of the line to accommodate all the EB-5 investors, and investors have no way of knowing when the EB-5 program will advance their nationality's cutoff date and thereby allow the line to move forward. Fortunately, the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act of 2022 introduced a new way for investors to avoid delays caused by limited visa availability. EB-5 applicants who invest in TEA or infrastructure projects are now eligible for set-aside visas. Investors in line for a set-aside visa will not be subject to cutoff dates and can receive their green cards following approval of Form I-526E. The new set-aside visa categories can be compared to a new waiting line for EB-5 visa applicants. Once they receive approval for Form I-526E, EB-5 investors in this new line will be eligible for a visa with no additional waiting times caused by the limited supply. As the new set-aside visa categories were introduced recently, no one is yet in line, so to speak. The Reform and Integrity Act sets aside 2% of the yearly EB-5 visa supply for infrastructure projects, 10% for high unemployment TEA projects, and 20% for rural TEA projects. As a result, there will be a limited number of set-aside visas available. Because rural EB-5 projects have by far the largest supply of set-aside visas, they are the safest options for investors from China, India, and Vietnam. In addition, investors in rural TEA projects receive the added benefit of priority processing for Form I-526E. How to select a low-risk rural EB-5 project. To increase their chances of immigrating successfully and receiving a timely return of their capital, EB-5 visa applicants need to carefully evaluate each project's risk profile and make sure it complies with the EB-5 program's requirements. Generally, EB-5 investors should avoid rural projects and industries that rely on future projected revenues and have high upfront costs. Examples of high-risk project types include hospitality and manufacturing developments, which may not remain viable in the event of an economic downturn. On the other hand, projects such as single-family housing and master-planned community developments have much faster earning potential. These project types can adjust the pace of construction as demand wanes or increases, making them safe options for rural EB-5 investors. EB-5 investors should also examine a rural project's capital structure. EB-5 projects should not depend on funding from EB-5 investors for completion. Rather, projects should use EB-5 capital to replace more expensive forms of funding. The safest projects can be fully funded and completed without capital from EB-5 investors. Other important factors in evaluating rural EB-5 projects include the developer's track record, whether construction has already begun, and the potential for job creation. Since EB-5 investors are required to create 10 jobs from their capital, this last requirement is particularly important. Next steps. Rural EB-5 projects offer an unprecedented opportunity for investors from China, India, Vietnam, and other countries to avoid delays and immigrate to the United States years earlier than otherwise possible. To learn more about low-risk rural EB-5 projects and the EB-5 immigration process, please schedule a free consultation with EB-5 AN.